Hey guys, I'm gonna do a oval to round elbow here for you. We're also gonna be doing a square to round elbow. The square to round elbow is a little bit easier than the oval to round, but I figured showing the oval to round is better to do first, just so you get used to the whole process and why things are as they are. So I just did a little sketch here of what we're looking for. It's going to be a 5-inch round to a 4-inch by 6-inch oval. It's a 3-piece elbow with a 4-inch throat. The seam of the middle section is going to be right there on the throat. The seams for the top and bottom gore are right in the center of the gore. So first things, just like most layout, I drew a 2-scale side elevation. I used the elbow rule. So number of pieces times 2 minus 2. So 3 pieces times 2 is 6, minus 2 is 4. So there's going to be 4 sections. 90 degrees divided by 4 is 22.5 degrees. So each one of these miters is at 22.5 degrees. So then you can use tan 22.5 times the 4 and half of that 4. So times 6 will give you a seam height. So I can use that to get the seam height here and here just with the math. Or you can bisect the angle and get a 45 and then bisect each one of those 45s to get 22.5 degrees. So either way works for laying out the side elevation here. So I know there's a lot of lines on here. I was trying to pre-do as much work as I can. But first things first, if you can see the dark blue lines, that's the side elevation with the miter lines of the oval to round elbow. The next thing on the round side, I did just a normal profile or half circle for the 5-inch side, and I started my numbering on the seam 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way around clockwise until we get back. Because the end gores here are actually going to be laid out with parallel line, and the middle gore here has to be laid out with triangulation. So now for the bottom side, we're not going to just do a 4-inch profile on there because it's an oval shape. So I drew what the oval looks like if I was to take that elbow and flip it up. So it's going to be 6 inches from here to here, 4 inches from here to here. So that means there's going to be a section of straight in the middle. So it's a 2-inch radius for that half of the 4-inch, 2-inch there. So 2 and 2 is 4. 6 minus 4 leaves 2, so there will be a 2-inch section of straight. A profile is always half of the end view, right? So half of the end view is going to be right here. So it's going to be 1 inch and then the 2-inch radius to get that 4-inch. So I did it in a green color here. So I have 1 inch of straight and then my 4-inch profile there, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Once I divided my circle into the equal spaces, I drew those lines up to get to that miter line, and same with here. And that's going to help me develop my end gore patterns using parallel line. So on a second page here, I have my top gore and my bottom gore. Sorry, the bottom one's a little bit messy. I right away just divided it into 12 equal sections, which is not what you're going to do here because there are sections of straight that you have to have in there. So first I'm just going to explain the top one here. So it's just like any other elbow. I took my stretch out, which is 5 times pi, divided it in 12 equal sections, and then took my lengths starting at the seam right there, and the seam covers both 1 and 7. So taking that length there with your compass, that length, 1, 7, 1, and then just going through and doing all of those lengths, right? This one does 2 and 6, 2, 6, And I just did that all the way. Remember to take the measurements from the edge of the elbow back to the miter line. Don't go from the profile to the miter line, because then it'll be all messed up. So from that line in. So that's the top one. Like I said, stretch out is 5 times pi. The bottom one is a little bit more confusing. We are still going to have 4 times pi, but then we also have 2 sections of straight. So to actually get the whole stretch out here is 4 times pi plus 2 inches of straight and plus 2 inches of straight. So half of the 4 times pi is there, 2 inches of straight, half goes here, 2 inches of straight. Now because we have our seam in the middle here, that means right on here we're actually cutting half of this in half. So it's going to be 1/4 of the stretch out, 2 inches of straight, half of the 4 times pi, 2 inches of straight, and then 1/4 of 4 times pi. So that's where I've written it like this here. So from here to here is 1/4 of 4 inch or 4 times pi and 2 inches of straight. And then from here to here we have half of the 4 times pi and then 2 inches of straight, and then again 1/4 of 4 times pi. And then I have my labeling, which is also a little bit confusing, but hopefully it'll help in the grand scheme of things. I again started with, I did the bottom side in letters, went A all the way through L clockwise. And right where that section of straight is, you end up using a letter twice. And then I also have a small d and a small j to represent the halfway points of these sections of straight, because the seam on this section, hopefully you guys can see what I'm pointing at here. The seam on this middle gore here is going to end up being halfway between the D's, right? So anyway, that'll make more sense as we get further in. So once I've gotten those lengths, I divided this into 3 equal sections, this into 6 equal sections, and that into 3 equal sections for a total of 12 equal sections. And the straight sections don't get divided at all, they're just straight sections. So once I've gotten my stretch out divided properly, then it's the same thing. I'm just going to be taking measurements. So again, if the seam is on A, I'm just going to take that length here. And again, from the bottom of the gore up to the miter line, that section is A. And it also represents G. So then I can take that, A and G, and then do the same thing. My B, which represents B and F, and then C length there, which is going to go C and E, and then the D one there. So I'll just move, I'll do that one because there's 2 D's. But that D measurement there represents D and D, right? Because it's not going to change height there. It's a section of straight. But just keep doing that all the way along, taking those measurements and then plotting them on the corresponding letters. So, and that's it for the end gores. Just simple parallel line. Now you need to lay out these first, because if you remember from last year doing triangulation like this, we need step-offs. And for laying out this pattern, you know, like going from 4 to 3. And we used to, or I think for a pair of pants, we used to take a step off from here. That's not going to be accurate enough, because this is an oval to round and it's triangulated, like that 4 to 5 or 4 to 3. I want to take that right from here, right from the actual miter line. But this miter line is going to attach to the center gore. So I'm going to be using the step-offs from here, and same with on the bottom side, I'm going to be using the step-offs from these lines here rather than these profiles, just so it's a little more accurate and it'll fit better. Anyway, let's move on to the center section here. The center section is all triangulation. I tried to do it in different colors so it stands out a little bit better. So I started off just straight lines, right? The light green with a lime green color. It's just attaching 11 to C, and then B to 12, A to 1, right, just right at the center, L to 2, K to 3, and then I sloped my, right, so those were straight, and then on a different color green, I just tilted my ruler back, went angle to angle, right, from there to there, and then from that point in, from that point there, right, just angled them all. And that gives you that nice zigzag pattern. And if you guys remember from triangulating round fittings like this, you follow the pattern. So from here, I'm gonna be starting basically from J and moving up this way. And then I'm gonna go from 4 down to K, going down this way, and then going K to 3. You know, as I'm triangulating the middle pattern, I'm just gonna be going back and forth following these lines. And those lines really help you keep track of where you are and where you're going to. So make sure you label really well though, or else you'll get lost. All right, so now I've started on the last page here. I've actually started laying out this middle gore. So the point number 4 here is just a single point. When I come down to the J, it's going to be from here to here, right? It's J and J, right? And then there's that little part where I kind of marked the middle of it. So it's going to end up making a triangle in the middle. So the true length that's here is going to be from 4 down to the little j, which is right in the center. So if I actually take this measurement right here and use that as a true length, and then go here right in the center, just a straight line up, that's me transferring that true length right to the middle. And then for me to get, so that's the little j, right in the middle. And then for me to get to the bigger j, see there's the little j, and to the big j is half of, right, it's just 1 inch. So I'm gonna basically go an inch in either direction. So I can actually just measure this with a compass, the 1 inch, or I can just use my ruler and measure an inch. It's a pretty, because it's 2 inches of straight, I just know I'm gonna be an inch on either side. So here I just went inch that way, straight line across, gives me my triangle right in the middle. That's the starting point of the middle gore. Hopefully that makes sense. I know these are really hard to teach. Once you do them a few times, they're actually not that hard to do. It's really hard to explain the whole process. So the nice thing is this is a recording, so you can always go back and double check to see what I'm doing. So now I've got that 4JJ triangle in the middle, and that's where I started from. I'm going from J up to 4. Now I need to go from 4 down to K. And this line K, it also covers I, so I'm going to go in either direction of that middle triangle. So what I need to do here is take this length of 4 to K. So I'm just going to start here at 4, set my compass up to the length of K, that measurement right there. Sorry, I'm gonna just flip this around so it's easier to see. That measurement right there. I'm gonna follow it all the way down to the bottom to where K, like the end of the gore here. I'm gonna stick my needle in the K there and swing it 90 degrees to that. So I transferred this measurement to this baseline here, right there. And then I labeled it, I made a dot, labeled it 4K, because I'm going from 4 down to K. It also covers I, so I could put the I in there, but I want to keep my labeling simple, because this is going to get pretty jumbled in here. So 4K is right there. Now 4 is a single point. If you guys remember from last year, what we need to do is do a difference in profiles, but because K has no fall to it, it's just a single point, I have nothing to subtract off of this profile here. So I'm going to be using the full height of this profile to triangulate my true length. So I'm making a true length triangle here. This is the measured length on the base. That's how much fall is happening. That hypotenuse becomes my true length. So I'm going to stick my needle right at the division there, take a measurement to that 4K, right there, 4K. And now I'm going to transfer that to my pattern over here. So I'm going from 4 here down to K, and it also does I, so I swing on that side. Okay. Now I need to go from J to K. So again, that's where I'm going to take this drawing now, and my J to K is right there. So I can take that step off of length, JK, and I'm going to put that on here, JK, well, JK. It's going to be the same both sides though, so JK. But I'm labeling them according to my drawing. Now you don't have to use the same labeling I did if you want to do something that makes it a little simpler, or if you want to label this whole side 3 and K and then do the same labeling on this side. It doesn't matter. This half of the pattern is going to be exactly the same as this one. I'm just using the labels so it actually matches completely. But if you want to simplify it, you totally can. All right, so now we got the K. So following our pattern here, we went from 4 to K. Now our next zigzag line up is going from K to 3, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to take this length of K to 3, that length right there, and I bring it down that K line until it hits the bottom of my end gore. I'm going to mark that measurement right there, 90 degrees to it. I labeled it 3K. Now 3 has a bit of fall on that profile, and so now I need to subtract this fall off of this fall to there. Now all of these lines are going to be taking off this baseline because these profiles are all bigger than these profiles. So it's best to do it here. If you ever had a profile here that was smaller than these ones, then you'd be swinging it 90 degrees to this line. But I'm sure you remember that from last year. So anyway, now I got the 3K there and 3K there. So I'm going to use that hypotenuse now as my true length. So right there. Actually, I shouldn't jump ahead. So what I did is I took the measurement here. So that fall right there from the circle to the baseline, right there. And I subtracted it off of this one, right there. Got that 3K. That 3K to that 3K is my true length. And so now I'm going K to 3, right? We started 4 to K, now we're going K to 3. K to 3, and I to 5 is going to be the same thing. So, and then to get my 4 to 3 and 4 to 5, again, I'm going to be using these end gores here. So just my step off is 4 to 3, right there and there, and that gives me 3 and 5. All right, so now we've gone up to 3 and 5. Now we're going to be following this line back down to L and H. So now this one's 3 to L. I take that dimension here,